Sarwar Sampanthan Mahata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The budget is both economic and political in content, and I might say so, this budget has been no exception. President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who also happens to be the finance minister, in introducing the budget, talked about peace, stability and development in the country. He talked about the fact that the LTTE had endeavored to distort the image of Sri Lanka abroad. He talked of provincial council elections. He talked of democracy. He placed particular confidence in the recently announced results of the Eastern Provincial Council, and he expressed happiness that the people of the Eastern Province had placed their confidence in the government. This is a matter in regard to which I would like to say a few words almost immediately. There were 35 members elected to the Eastern Provincial Council, of whom only 13 can be claimed by the government as belonging to their party. There were 12 from the UPFA and 1 from the National Freedom Front, while 22 members were elected from the parties which opposed the government at the Provincial Council election. They were the Ilangai Communist Kutchi, the Tamil National Alliance, the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, and the UNP, which won 11 seats, 7 seats, and 4 seats respectively. In fact, the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress won 7 seats of the election by attacking the government. A member of parliament was a minister in the government, resigned from his position saying that it was incompatible for him to be a minister and also be critical of the government and oppose the government at the election, and therefore he was resigning. So the reality is that the people in the Eastern Province did not repose their confidence in this government. They elected only 13 members on behalf of the government. There were 22 members elected on behalf of the opposition. That is an indisputable fact. Whatever may have happened after the elections and whatever may have been done by a political party for reasons best known to itself. Talking about the Northern Province, the President said that people had returned to normal living, and he said that in a short time, resettlement, rehabilitation and other benefits had been achieved. He also said, sir, in the course of his speech, that communal and religious harmony had been restored in this country. The budget talks of various development programs which are to be welcomed. Only implementation will ensure that the people are able to receive the expected benefits. But the budget, I'm sorry to state, is somewhat silent on the steps being taken to provide immediate relief to alleviate the hardships of people who are suffering in several ways, and to relieve them of the many burdens that they are presently undergoing. It's widely known that the country is in extreme debt, both domestic and foreign debt, and that the country incurs substantial expenditure in debt servicing. In fact, it is believed that further debt is being incurred to service the existing debt, and one wonders where all this will lead the country to. It will be pertinent for me to pose a question as to whether we are a country reeking with debt, which has to be repaid by future generations, maybe yet unborn generations. The question also needs to be asked whether this should be allowed to continue unchecked. Is the budget oriented towards putting the country on a sound economic footing and developing the country based on such an economy? Or is the budget oriented towards short-term political popularity of the present government at the expense of the country's long-term interests? Now, sir, it may be relevant for me to pose a question now at this particular juncture as to the number of ministers we have in the present government. We have with me, in the country today, sir, 60 ministers and $36 deputy ministers. 96 persons are either ministers or deputy ministers. In fact, even in the course of this budget debate, we are not able to allocate time within the allotted days for all the votes of the different ministries to be discussed, and some are being discussed through another mechanism. Is there a clear comprehension as to who is answerable for what in regard to implementation? Is such a mega cabinet required? Does the country need it? Can the country afford it? Is this mega cabinet really serving the country? Or are they merely serving the party in power? Continuing to support the party in whatever he does, because they can never have it so good, and they are having it really good. How much is it costing the country to maintain such a large mega cabinet of ministers and deputy ministers? Curtailment of expenditure must start at the center. The number of ministers in the center must be reduced, and the number of ministries in the provinces must be increased, with the provinces being given more powers. In fact, instead of having 9 provinces, we can have 4 or 5 regions. That would be another way to reduce expenditure. So these are matters that need to be looked at and examined, because I do not think, particularly with the debt being so high, this country can go on experiencing such great expenditure in maintaining such a large cabinet. For a long time, and for a long time in the future. I also wish to point out, sir, that very unfortunately, no specific allocation has been made for the war-affected Northeast. The people who have suffered the most, they have suffered immensely. They've been rendered destitute. They've lost everything and been reduced to a state of penury. Unfortunately, no allocation has been made for these people. As a matter of fact, no allocation has been made for these people in the years 2010 and 2011 either. Now, sir, rather than my posing the question as to why such things are happening, it may be good for persons in government to ask themselves the question as to whether this is the way to bring about reconciliation, whether this is the way to win the hearts and minds of these people who have suffered so much. I also want to ask you in this connection, why non-governmental organizations are being prevented from functioning freely in the north and the east. Why these non-governmental organizations are brought under the control of the Defense Ministry. Is it to constrain them and constrict them? They cannot act as desired by them. They cannot act as desired by the people. Is this necessary? And would such steps on behalf of the government be conducive to reconciliation? Bring about communal harmony in the country, which the President talked about in the course of his speech, and in regard to which we are prepared to be fully supportive of the government acts in a sensible way. Having made these remarks, sir, since the President talked about communal and religious harmony and development in this country based upon peace and stability, I want to pose the question as to whether the government is honestly prepared for a reasonable political solution to bring to an end the long ethnic conflict in this country. Government actions in regard to this matter are clearly indicative to the contrary. Government has not remained committed to even statements made by it domestically. As for instance, when the President addressed the inaugural meeting of the APRC and the committee of experts he appointed, when he talked of maximum possible devolution, he wanted the identity of people to be preserved. He wanted people to be able to determine their destiny in the areas in which they lived. He talked of socio-economic advancement. And he wanted the experts committee in the APRC to study models of power sharing the world over and come up with proposals that would suit this country. What has happened to all that? The government has not been able to keep its commitments to the international community. To the Secretary General of the United Nations, when he came here just after the war came to an end, and when there was a joint communique issued by the government and the Secretary General of the UN, the government has not been able to keep its commitment to India, made repeatedly. And India has been concerned with the resolution of the conflict in Sri Lanka over a period of time. India is a country which is very firmly committed to the unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity of its country and wants a political solution within that framework. India has been quite clear in regard to that matter. The government has made a commitment to India, not once, but several times over, that the 13th Amendment will be fully implemented and the 13th Amendment will be built upon so as to bring about meaningful devolution. Has the government kept to that commitment? Why has not the government been able to keep to that commitment? When the government appointed the APRC and the expert committee, the majority of the experts have come up with a report. Report A of the committee of experts. Has that report been implemented? That report is entirely based upon the speech delivered by President Mahinda Rajapaksa to the inaugural meeting of the APRC and the committee of experts, based upon maximum possible devolution, based upon socio-economic advancement, based upon identity being preserved. Why has not the report of that committee been implemented? The government appointed the LLRC, the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission. They have come up with their own report. And they have called for maximum possible devolution, maximum possible power sharing, and said that is a fundamental basis on which there can be reconciliation and harmony amongst the different peoples who inhabit this country. Is that report being implemented? Of course, these are reports submitted by bodies who have been appointed by the government. Both the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission and the expert committee appointed by the government, they were reports made by the government, reports made by committees appointed by the government. I want to place before this House, sir, some further information regarding this matter, I read from the manifesto of Mrs. Bandaranaike, Srimabo Bandaranaike, a much respected leader in this country, who was the leader of the SLFP and who fought the 1988 presidential elections as a candidate of the Democratic People's Alliance, which comprised of the SLFP and several other parties. What did she say? In part 2 of that manifesto, dealing with the resolution of the ethnic problem, she stated, the concept of devolution is accepted for Sri Lanka. There shall be a predominantly Tamil unit comprising of what is a combined northern and eastern provinces, but excluding the area covered by the predominantly Muslim unit. There shall be a predominantly Muslim unit comprising the predominantly Muslim areas in the Ampara district as the base, and identify the predominantly Muslim areas in the Batticova and Trincomalee districts. Rights of Sinhalese and all other persons in each unit shall be on the basis of absolute equality. All state powers, legislative, executive, and judicial, except those reserved to the centre, shall be devolved to democratically elected bodies called regions. Parliament shall, however, be able to override legislation of the regions by a two-thirds majority of its sole membership. That's what she said. And there were 15 subjects that she had identified as being subjects that must be reserved for the centre, and she wanted all the other subjects to be given to the provinces. I am tabling this document, sir, the manifesto of Mrs. Srimabo Bandaranaike at the 1988 presidential elections, and I would request that you direct that this be included in the Hansard at the end of my speech. Mr. Gamini Dissanayake was a candidate of the United National Party at the presidential election held in 1994. There was a manifesto issued by him. What did Mr. Gamini Dissanayake say in his manifesto? He said, the adoption of the widest possible degree of devolution to provincial councils on the basis of territorial units to be agreed with representative political forces of the north and the east is what will bring about peace and harmony in this country. I am tabling this manifesto of Mr. Gamini Dissanayake also, sir, issued in 1994, and I would request that you direct that this be included in the Hansard at the end of my speech. Now these leaders, sir, Mrs. Srimabo Bandaranaike and Mr. Gamini Dissanayake, were outstanding Sinhala Buddhist leaders who commanded the confidence of the people in this country, who could not have betrayed the people in this country, particularly the Sinhala Buddhist people. But they had their courage, they had the courage of their convictions to state what needed to be done to bring about peace in this country. President Mahinda Rajapaksa, you undoubtedly are aware, Mr. Speaker, cut his political teeth as a disciple of Mrs. Srimabo Bandaranaike. He came into politics when Mrs. Bandaranaike was in power. When he was elected member of parliament in 1970, Mrs. Bandaranaike was the Prime Minister of this country. So these are matters, sir, positions taken up by respected, reputed leaders for the benefit of this country, which we cannot afford to ignore.